Knicks all-star forward Julius Randle has agreed to a 4-year, $117 million contract extension, elevating his deal's total value to 5 years, $140 million, and it is well-deserved. Randle had a breakthrough season for the Knicks, earning the NBA's Most Improved Player award and second-team All-NBA honors, on his way to leading the franchise back to the playoffs with a fourth seed in the Eastern Conference. Aside from Randle, it has been a busy offseason for the team. They also re-signed 4 key members of the rotation last season and added Kemba Walker and Evan Fournier in free agency. So, Stephen A., can it be? Are the New York Knicks an attractive destination finally?
Well, let me say this, guys. Let me say this. First of all, props to the New York Knicks. I mean, Julius Randle re-signs 4 years, $117 million. He's not a number one option. As a result of that, I didn't want to see 180 to 200 million, which he wasn't eligible for. His extension was going to be 4 years in that ballpark. I think that's about right in today's NBA economy. I love the fact that they retained Derrick Rose. Kemba Walker's a nice pickup. I still have concerns about his knees, not his game, because if his knees are healthy, the brother's good for 20 a night, and clearly he's a guy that can create his own shot, unlike Reggie Bullock and those other guys. So him and Fournier definitely can create their own shot and will help elevate the Knicks' perimeter play. As a result, I still expect them to be stout defensively with Mitchell Robinson. I don't think they've compromised their culture. I think that they're building something here. They're still not a championship contender, Max. I'm not on that wagon. I know better. Even though we here. The bottom line is I know better. Let me say this, Max Kelly, because this has not been brought up. I don't know if anybody else has noticed this, but I have. You know, it was really, really exciting watching Kevin Durant put on the show that he put on in Brooklyn at the Barclays Center once Kyrie went down and James Harden was hobbled trying to help out but really couldn't do much, and KD was putting on the show that he was putting on. But, you know, as I watch these Brooklyn Nets, there's a lot of news that's been made about the big three and whether or not they'll get the extension. First of all, clearly they'll get offered the extension because if whatever Kevin Durant wants, the Brooklyn Nets are going to give him. If he wants Kyrie to stay, they're going to re-up Kyrie. He wants James Harden there, they're going to re-up. And if he don't want any of them there, which I'm certainly not saying is the case, then they wouldn't offer it to them. KD is the man. But what if they get offered the extension, Max Kellerman, and KD doesn't want it? What if KD wants to wait a year and just see how things unfold? What if KD, because he got this year coming up, and then after that he can exercise his player option to be a free agent? What if KD, Max Kellerman, decides that, you know what, I've been to New York and, Brooklyn nice, but, the Garden's just a different level. I mean, what if that happens, Max Kellerman?
I have one question.
Hey, man. I'm in L.A. Hollywood Walk of Fame is out there, Tinseltown. Some people say Land of Dreams. And, I just came from Disney World, Max Kellerman. I'm in a fantasy kind of mood. I'm just saying. I'm watching Sean Marks and the Brooklyn Nets, and I'm going to just see if KD decides indeed, because I know he's going to get offered the extension, I'm going to wait and see if he going to sign it. And if by some happenstance he doesn't sign it, maybe, just maybe, Max, seeing the city of New York act like champions just because their team got to the first round of the playoffs, maybe, just maybe, that made folks in Brooklyn, like KD, say, damn, that's all it takes for these people to be like this? I mean, the world is about branding.
I have one question.
World is about branding, right?
I have one question.
Anything's possible, Max.
I have one question.
Anything's possible.
Before I know whether to
possible.
get really interested or just to laugh my head off right now.
Right.
I talk to sometimes, or an agent or someone like that, and you can't say that you've spoken to them, but you have certain information.
Sure.
And so I might present it a certain way on the air.
Yes.
And frequently.
We all do that.
Frequently, and I don't talk to as many people nearly as you do.
Right.
You used to be a reporter and still talk to everybody. This is what I need to know right now.
Yeah.
Is this one of these Stephen A. things where I need to read between the lines?
No.
Or is this is just delusional Knicks fan Stephen A?
This is just delusional Knicks fan Stephen A.
Crying out loud.
That's all it is.
Wait a minute.
I'm just saying.
You mean to tell me that Kevin Durant, after all the injuries and they flamed out in the playoffs in Brooklyn, Kevin Durant, who's starting a legacy that the Brooklyn Nets haven't had since they've been in the NBA.
Right.
The Nets had it in the ABA with Dr. J. They were actually the last team to win a championship in New York when they were on Long Island, 1976. Dr. J. But in the NBA, he is starting a rich historical tradition in Brooklyn, moving them from the margins into the mainstream with Kyrie Irving, James Harden, a revitalized Blake Griffin, Joe Harris, and by the way, Patty Mills coming off the bench. They're going to set the world on fire if they stay healthy. He's already in New York, and he's going to leave it all to just go across the river for what? Why would he do that?
Well, let me explain. Again, I'll openly acknowledge this ain't no conversation. This is just me sitting on the sidelines. This is just me sitting on the sidelines observing. And I said, you know something? Kyrie Irving got the injury. That's true. We all know he box office, man. You walk through the turnstiles to see Kyrie Irving. The brother's a showstopper. He is something special to behold. But he got his mind on other things deeper than basketball. And by the way, on a serious note, major props to him. I forgot what it was he did in Palestine or whatever, in terms of getting some water and all of this other stuff. I forgot I don't have the article in front of me, but just his philanthropy and his heart is in the right place. And Kyrie Irving deserves a boatload of credit for that on a serious note.
Absolutely right.
But just speaking on the basketball front, he has his mind on various things. That ain't Kevin Durant. He just want to hoop all day, every day. James Harden, he ain't in the Olympics. He was in France, damn near getting himself in trouble. Probably not his fault, but nevertheless, you got your mind on other things. All I'm trying to say is that if you KD and you don't leave New York, all right, and you at the Garden, all right, I'm just saying, listen, here's the deal, Max. If he does, everything will tell us. Now, I know you sitting there looking like that. But if we hear weeks from now and Kevin Durant gets offered an extension and he doesn't sign it, which means he completes next season in Brooklyn, and then after that, he can opt out, what are we going to be talking about? We're going to say, why didn't he sign it? What's going on here? We're going to ask that question now. We're going to ask that question.
James Harden. Kyrie Irving, Blake Griffin over here, Emmanuel Quickly, and R.J. Barrett, nice young players over there. I want to leave this team to go to that.
Max, can you at least admit this, Max?
Yeah.
You have to admit that you saw, because even you lamented the ridiculousness, the delusional, ludicrous mentality Knicks fans had, but you saw how crazy New York was off of a first-round appearance. You didn't see, listen, man, we saw a beautiful, nice crowd enjoying an electrifying performance by KD in the postseason. When we saw the Knicks, and they weren't even worthy of it in terms of what was happening to them against the Atlanta Hawks, you saw New Yorkers going crazy.
I'll say this.
Just a different level.
To answer the question directly, are the Knicks an attractive destination? The answer right now is yes.
Okay.
I'll give you that. The answer right now is yes.
Well, Stephen A.
They're building a culture, Charlie. Building a culture. And by the way, I'm Knicks first, New York always. So I don't root against the Nets under any circumstances unless it's against the New York Knicks. New York always.
It's the first
Knicks
round
first.
this upcoming.
$200 million plus contracts. Meanwhile, also in the West, LeBron James has facilitated a new-look Lakers squad, corralling more star power with the addition of Russell Westbrook and also Carmelo Anthony. So, Stephen A., who would you say is more motivated heading into the upcoming season? Is it LeBron or is it Steph?
I'm going to say Steph. I understand what LeBron was saying the other day, and I'll leave that to you, Max. But I'm going to say Steph Curry. You signed. There's no player in the history of basketball that signed two $200 million deals. That would happen to be Steph Curry. That's what he did. And let me be very, very clear to speak to the greatness of Steph Curry. He signed for $215 million over 4 years, averaging $53.75 million per year. And no one on the planet blinked. because we all know he deserved those damn dollars. He's Steph Curry. He is the greatest shooter that God ever created. It is that simple. And if anybody deserves this money, it is him. He is a sniper extraordinaire, the most elite sniper the game has ever seen. And he is absolute box office because unlike some people like Kawhi Leonard, he actually markets and promotes the brand he represents as well as the league. And so when I look at it from that perspective, and I think about what they had to go through the last 2 years without Klay Thompson, been 2 years. Now, I know last season was truncated because of COVID-19, and we get all of that. But the last 2 seasons, the Golden State Warriors have not had the services of Klay Thompson. And if I'm Steph Curry, who went to 5 consecutive NBA finals, who won 3 championships in that period of time, and I had to suffer what I had to suffer through the last 2 years, the only person hungrier than me, or just as hungry as me, might be Draymond Green. That's about it. They can't wait for Klay to come back. Klay can't wait to come back. And Klay, one of the top 5 shooters in basketball history, and a Hall of Famer already, the opportunity that Steph is looking at for them to reunite, with everybody talking about the Lakers and the Clippers and all and Phoenix and all of this other stuff, Lord have mercy. Look out for the Golden State Warriors. They are coming.
Steph Curry, I'm going to need a lower third for him pretty soon, the way you have it for LeBron, Stephen A., because I'm accused of being a lower third. I'm going to need one for Steph when I talk about him, the way you need one for LeBron. Great family man, philanthropist, et cetera, et cetera. Because I'm accused of being a Steph Curry hater. One of my favorite players in any sport ever to watch, a miraculous player to put your eyes on. I point out that something like in overtime, in a winner-go-home game this season, it's not just that they lost. He scored 0 points. I just pointed that out. Doesn't mean he's a bad player. He's a great player. But I point that out.
I just think it's important, Max, that you remind people at the time you had more hair, no crew cut on the side, and you didn't have any facial hair. That's the last time. That's when that was going on with Steph Curry. I just want to let the world know that.
No. I mean this season. This season when they made the play-in game.
Oh,
right?
Okay.
The reason that doesn't even occur to you because it wasn't reported. No one noticed it. But in overtime, in a winner-go-home game, this season, he scored 0 points. And no one bats an eye. Could you imagine if that was LeBron James, who scored 0 points in overtime of a winner-go-home game? We would be killing him. And that's because LeBron is compared to the GOAT, Michael Jordan. He is playing against a ghost for the title of greatest of all time. He's running out of time. He's getting up there in age. He has a super team around him, even though it's imperfect parts, but it's still super talented. You always bring up, if I say, hey, could Steph ever be the greatest player ever? You talk about his height, and you'd be right. He's 6'3". He's the greatest 6'3" or under player ever. But because he's 6'3", he ain't ever going to be the greatest player who ever lived. Right? He's already reached the mountaintop of what he's capable of doing in terms of his own legacy that way.
We thought that coming into last year. And look at what he did last year.
Because he's great. He was as good as he's ever been. And he's great. But he is not challenging MJ. That's what LeBron's up against. He does not have 6 championships. He does have a super team around him. No excuses. He is LeBron James. He's facing the most pressure, like we were just talking about, and he's got to be the most motivated.
I'm going to say something to you, Max Kellerman. I think you need to buckle your seatbelt for what I'm about to say because it's really true. You're right. Steph doesn't compare to MJ. Size and height has something to do with it. His lack of defensive prowess has a lot to do with it because he certainly was not even close to the defender that Michael Jordan did. But offensively, I can make a conversation that Steph Curry is in the conversation of MJ. We have never seen a shooter this phenomenal. Ever. And let's understand. And see, he didn't have the aerial assault. He didn't have the aerial arsenal that Michael Jordan had. Couldn't finish at the basket the way Michael Jordan could or whatever. Steph Curry, we usually see offensive players, Max, and with the exception of a Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Wilt Chamberlain that's over 7 feet tall and dominant because of their height and size and the skyhook, of course, we usually look at guys, and there's not a single player that we look at and we say Michael Jordan couldn't do that. We didn't see LeBron. We don't see LeBron. We didn't see Kobe, Vince Carter, or anybody else do anything that we felt Michael Jordan couldn't do offensively. Michael Jordan couldn't shoot like that.
Well, if you want to say
nobody could shoot like that.
If you want, no doubt. If you want to say foot for foot, Steph is the best offensive player ever. Fine, but you know what else Michael Jordan couldn't do?
I'm not saying he's the best. I'm just saying that as an offensive talent, because of Steph Curry's marksman ability, because of his ability to just shoot with his eyes closed. We made a big deal about what Michael Jordan did at the free throw line, closing his eyes and hitting the free throw against the Kemba Tumble and the Atlanta Hawks. We're seeing Steph Curry shoot 40-foot jump shots.
Okay, let me ask you a different way.
We can't say anything.
Is there any universe ever where Michael Jordan could play overtime of a win-or-go-home game and score 0 points in any universe? It would never happen. It happened to Steph. No one bats an eye. I'm not bringing it up to hate on Steph. I'm bringing it up to say the standards are different for Steph because he's shorter than a guy like LeBron.
Let's not just point shorter. Let's point the fact that, again, because you're relatively smaller, his movement without the ball, you're required.
Well, keep talking about my squad. Our personnel ages, the way he plays, he stays injured, we're past our time in this league, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Do me one favor, please, and I mean please, keep that same narrative energy when it begins. That's all I ask. Hashtag thank you. Okay, so experience over age clearly is the mentality for the Lakers this year. Will LeBron and the Lakers win the title next year, Max?
No, they won't, because they have not done enough to pass the Nets. They've done enough to be a real challenge, not one of these fake challenges where if the Nets are healthy like last year, LA's healthy, the Nets are healthy, I think the Lakers are going to be. No, they weren't going to. No one was going to take a healthy Nets team 7 games. You saw what KD just with Kyrie, without James Harden last year, without Harden, who was game for game the best player in the league last year. Just KD and Kyrie were whooping up on the Bucks, who won the championship so bad early it was embarrassing. It was a mismatch. That without Harden, who is the glue guy, the guy who made it all work, who was running really D'Antoni's offense and all of that. Now, what's happened since then? If the Nets are healthy, they have, I want you to think about this carefully, Marcus Spears. They have, at their size, the 3 greatest all-around scorers. They can score from anywhere, who ever lived. At their size. You know, Harden's like 6'5". Yeah, I'm not saying he's better than Michael Jordan scoring the ball. I'm saying, show me anyone 6'2" who could score like Kyrie from anywhere. Free throw line, 3-point line, layup package with the handles, the whole thing. Same thing with Harden, same thing with KD at 6'11". 3 greatest scorers from anywhere who ever lived at their size. Now, what else do they have? We saw Blake Griffin